Welcome to The Ripple, where extraordinary women executives share their turning points, growing pains, breakthroughs, and triumphs to help you show up with confidence. I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, and today we're joined by the irreverent Noelle Russell, founder of the iHeart AI community and the AI Leadership Institute. She's an award-winning technologist who helps companies grow and scale with AI. Microsoft named her most valuable professional in artificial intelligence, and she was also honored with VentureBeat's Women in AI Responsibility and Ethics Award. Today, she joins us to share the bad advice that turned into her amazing path forward. Noelle, thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, and I think we're all going to learn so much from you.
I'm so grateful to be here, and I hope my experiences can be helpful to somebody.
Oh, absolutely. You've got such a unique trajectory, and I want to get into it. You have had several roles with AI now, and of course, for most of us, this is a rather new addition to our lives at work and otherwise. Can you tell me about what you love about doing this work?
I'm really excited about having an opportunity to work with technology that removes the boundaries. So, being a divergent thinker myself, coming from a very diverse background, there were lots of hurdles to getting into this space, learning about this technology. And I ended up loving the fact that the ability for us to now use technology without having to become a mathematician, without having to have a PhD in statistics, just by having a problem willing and wanting to solve, I can now use technology to solve it. I think it's a really empowering time, right? For anyone who has a problem they want to solve, technology can be a friend in doing that work. And I love that about this space.
It's always interesting when people have roles in emerging technology because I think just like the consumer cycle where you have the pioneers and the early adopters and the general public, like you have that snowball that gets going where people adopt it. I think the same thing happens with these roles, except so many people are on the pioneering edge of something to get a role in it during a time when the general public is still adopting it. So, how did you end up on the path for AI to become your career? How did you get here?
I always tell people I ended up actually, I was a cloud architect at AWS. At that time, cloud has been around for a while now, but at that time it was relatively new. This was 10 years ago, and I get an email from Jeff Bezos in my inbox. And of
Oh
course,
my
I
gosh.
now realize it wasn't actually from him. It was like from his on behalf of, but still, I felt like in the moment, like, oh
That's
my
closer
gosh.
than most of us
Yes.
get, yeah.
Right, you get all excited. So I'm like, this is amazing. And in this email, he was inviting members of the company to join a new team and build the Star Trek computer, something that I had been, envisioning. I've been a fan of the golden age of science fiction, Asimov and Bradbury, for a long time. And so it was really exciting to have an opportunity to actually think about really building robots. And what I thought was most interesting about that was that he said, it doesn't matter who you are, anyone can play. And I was like, then that's me. So I got into it literally by invitation, but I did kind of come into it as a different voice in the room, right? I wasn't a classical data scientist. I wasn't classically trained in artificial intelligence or natural language, but it gave me a very unique perspective and something that I now encourage people. When you want to go into a space like artificial intelligence, your uniqueness is not a weakness, right? It actually can be your greatest strength.
And it rhymes, so it's true.
That's true. Alliteration, rhyming, like, all about it.
Yeah, I buy it. I'm so glad that you're not the typical data engineer because we need different voices, obviously, and we've seen as AIs become more popular how a lack of diversity has really contributed to biases and things like that. But even when somebody rolls out the red carpet for you and says, "Hey, come join us," which is hardly ever the case, there are a lot of people who would maybe shy away from that or not instinctively think, "That's me. This is for me. I'm going to do it." What drove you? Like, how did you cultivate that mindset that you invited yourself to those situations?
I think that's so critical actually, because so many times and it can get even worse where we're actually uninviting ourselves to your point, right? Where we're actually like, oh, this isn't for me for X number of reasons. And I will say from a very young age, like even in high school, I had kind of the doubters, right? People who would, one was an economics professor, and he actually encouraged me to just drop out of high school because I was terrible at high school, hated classrooms. I would be the kid in class who would know more than the teacher and then let them know it in front of everyone, which by the way is not good for your high school career. But this one teacher pulled me aside and actually he was a trusted advisor, right? Like he was a nice guy. It wasn't like he was out to get me, but he pulled me aside and was like, this isn't for you. You should why stay here? Get into retail, go into food service. I was in a not a very affluent part of the world at the time in the United States. And so it wasn't natural for him to be like, go to college, right? Like he was kind of guiding me on a natural path that he thought I should be on. And I remember in that moment thinking, like, that is not I don't wanna do that. Like, I'm not gonna go and work in retail the rest of my life. And being customer service doesn't mean I'm only good as a person serving you food or selling you clothes. Like, that's crazy to me. So, I
Strange
ended up, of
advice.
course, kind of dismissing or accepting his, acknowledged feedback, and I ended up getting great scores on my high school tests, SATs and ACTs, and I went to university anyway. But it became a reminder to me that sometimes out of limited vision of who someone thinks I can be, they will give me advice. And it is only through that limited vision that they give it. And so when I get that advice, I have to really think like, do you know what I'm capable of? Do you know what I can do? And that has now shown up all throughout my career, going into cloud, same thing, going into AI. My manager going into my AI team at Alexa, he told me like he didn't think I was technical enough, even though I ended up joining the Alexa team and building with my own hands, fingers on keyboard, over 100 applications for Alexa. He just couldn't see who I wanted to become. And so I always encourage people like sometimes people give you advice and it's great to evaluate, but sometimes it's not really you they're talking about. It might be themselves.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that's another reason it's so important that you're bringing diversity into that space because no doubt some of the reason people can't see those things for you is because they've never seen someone like you do it.
Right.
And you're becoming that for the next woman that it's like, "Oh, I've seen it done. You can do it. You can do it."
100%.
Right? And it's sad that they need that role model. They need someone to literally do it to imagine a woman doing it, but that's how it is sometimes.
Yeah, and it's actually how it is all the time. Like Roger Bannister, right? He ran the first 4-minute mile. It took a very long time. People were chasing him to try and do that. But as soon as he did it, people do it all the time now. Just because now they can see that it's done. Tony Hawk, I just watched 25th year of the 960, this like circular thing they do with skateboarders. But he was the first to do it. Now, they not only do that, they do way more than that. But you're 100% right. Sometimes your teammates need to see someone like you doing it. But more importantly, other people like you need to see someone doing it. So I've inspired, like, all these women send me letters and notes saying, as soon as I saw someone who looked like me, it opened the door for me to say yes to an opportunity that before I just thought was closed to me. And I've like cried tears of joy reading my Instagram feeds when people tell me that just seeing me in a Girls Who Code session when they were 17 changed the trajectory of a career they chose to do. And that's why I think like the entire audience, right? If you can just tell your story, you'd be surprised how many lives you could change just being who you are and being an example of someone who's done the things that they've wanted to do and even had struggles in the things that they've tried to do.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the entire reason Wednesday Women exists. And it's the reason we're doing this podcast is to get amazing women like you to tell their stories and create this community where women see themselves in someone else. Because we need that. We need role models. And, that's also what brought me to Wednesday Women personally. I have my own business working with women leaders. And I saw that some of the most senior women leaders were just silent. They felt like their voice was a liability, so they weren't sharing their stories.
100%.
And I think it's super related to what you were talking about, where the role models in your life, the teachers in your life, the managers in your life, the mentors were the ones telling you, I don't see this for you. Why don't you just quit and go work in fast food or something else? And they couldn't see what you were capable of. And there are so many times I can't imagine someone saying that to me when I was like 17 and not believing them,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because I personally feel like when somebody feels bold enough to give me feedback, it's because they know better than me.
Right. This is a common
And
misconception.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it takes so much strength, especially at such an impressionable age, to hear that feedback and think you don't know what you're talking about.
100%. And actually, like in the moment, I'm like, you know what? You're probably right. But I remember at that time, I had a dream of going to like getting out of this town, right? Lots of kids in towns that are kind of underrepresented,
Yeah.
impoverished. Like you just always dream of getting out. And I do think that as a Latina, I am used to people telling me you can't do something and then me kind of being almost spiteful. I mean, as a
Mhm.
baby, I'm sure, like 2 years old, like I was always kind of this, you say no, I'm gonna go do it anyway. And that you're kind of I grew up doing that because you kind of have to fight for your own. I'm actually a twin. I have a twin brother who is
Oh boy, so there's
brilliant
an
in the
extra layer.
yeah, he's brilliant in the area of, like, art, and he's actually a creative director over at the Sphere in Las Vegas at MGM, but one of the projects is the Sphere that he does, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," like, I remember when I was younger, I would just fight for attention. I would like, "You tell me no, I'm gonna do it anyway because I need to build my own space." So I kind of like you said, I built this mindset from a very young age of, like, I'm going to really evaluate what I want, and I think that's probably one of the biggest lessons I learned from getting advice that was good and bad, was that the only thing that allowed me to choose which direction to take that advice was my kind of sense of self. Like, what do I want? What's my purpose? The manager I had before Alexa, what he didn't know was I had my son, and my son had Down syndrome. He was 9. He was just starting to kind of navigate his way in the world. And I knew that this product would change his life. So he could tell me no, but I was gonna do this. And I think when
Yeah.
you have that certainty of like, what is it for you to do in the world, it allows you to kind of filter out the signal to noise ratio a little bit better.
Well, and it helps you to stop pursuing the options that are the backup and the backup backup.
Yes.
You can actually focus your energy because you've decided.
Yes. As they say, burn the boats, right? And I
Yeah.
many times, I mean, obviously, I left the world of cloud to go join Alexa, which could have been a disaster. I could have joined the Fire Phone. The Fire Phone product was a disaster, but I didn't. I joined Alexa and it worked out, became a household name, thank goodness. And I was a big believer in the technology for more than just a smart kitchen, right? And now it is. It's way more than a smart kitchen. It's in classrooms and nursing homes. But I always wonder, like how you had said this, how many women and I remember going around to some of my friends and be like, "Did you get this email? Like, there's an opportunity. We should go join Alexa." And they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, oh, I'm not sure about that." Or worse, they'd say, "I just got a promotion. I really don't think it's right for me to leave the team that promoted me." And I would rethink about that over the years and be like, how many of us feel a sense of loyalty to an organization that and now many of us know as the layoff kind of churns have happened, like that loyalty is not mutual in an organization. They are very much at the end of the day serving their shareholders. And if you don't align with that, you'll just as easily not have a job there. But like some people turn down the opportunity to be part of a life-changing, trajectory changing career because they were worried that they'd, kind of disappoint the manager that just gave them a promotion. And it's these are the types of things we really have to get a sense of like, who are we outside of our job? Like, what do we want to accomplish in our life? And how do we use the career choices we make to get closer to that? And I truly believe that in everything that I do.
I agree. And I think there's an element that we tune out, especially as women, because we are just brought up to be these givers and these nurturers and loyalty, just like you were talking about. It's what we owe to ourselves
Yes.
because we get into these situations and we're so quick to think about what we owe to this team, what we owe to this manager, what we
Yes.
owe to someone else
Yes.
because of the situation. If you just got promoted, if you just got the job, whatever. But it's easy to forget that while what you owe them is in contrast to what you owe yourself, and you are making a priority choice.
Yeah.
It's not just that there's no downside here. It's like you are actively downplaying what you owe to yourself when you when you focus on what you owe to someone else.
I think it's kind of part of being a woman in tech in my experience is that we almost are grateful for anything we can get in the world of work, in the world of roles and titles. And we don't really realize how valuable we are until we get on the team. And then you're on the team, but now you have less of a title than your peers, you get paid less than your peers, and you know that you are actually not only maybe as good as they are, but possibly provide even richer context and richer experiences than they have. But you couldn't see that before you took the role. So now I always encourage people like I spend time, I have a one of these devices I write in every single day and I write three things. I write what I'm grateful for every single day. I also do this with my family at the dinner table, whether my teenagers like it or not. But I do. I have 6 kids, so I have lots to be grateful for. But I write my grateful fors and then I write my life goals. I write them as if they are true right now. And fun fact, I've been writing that I would become a best-selling author for a decade, maybe more. Like, I wanna be a best-selling author. I wanna be for a decade. And just last year, I signed a contract with Wiley, which is a big publisher that could actually make that come true. And this, I think, is also important about figuring out what you want to do and how people kind of guide you. Is when you say you want something, you are not going to necessarily get the golden ticket delivered in your mailbox. You're going to get an opportunity. I have an opportunity with Wiley. If I don't write every day, that dream doesn't come true. There's more to it than just the delivery of the goods. I always say the universe isn't a vending machine. You don't say, I want this and it comes to you. An opportunity has presented itself. I've signed a contract with Wiley. All I have to do is deliver on the promise I made to myself. But if I get a job with a company and I decide to dismiss that as a priority and I'm like, oh no, I'm with this company now and I need to make sure I do a good job for them. And I know I promised myself I'd write, but I really need to be on this client call. All of a sudden, this dream I've had for 10 years, it disintegrates right in front of me. And so it's really important. Like when you have these, I write them every day. This is what I want. And it helps me prioritize every single moment of my day to make sure I'm only saying yes to those things in alignment with what I want. And I'm saying no to the things that don't align with what I want.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty powerful tool.
I know a lot of our listeners, they are people with dreams, pursuing them. They're hopefully getting opportunities all the time, but they're also creating opportunities for others. We have a lot of listeners who are also leaders. So, I'm curious as my last question to you, how has your experience with mentors and teachers who haven't seen your potential or who have been kind of telling you that you can't, how does that shape the advice that you give now and how you create opportunities for others?
Well, I'll tell you, I got so passionate about this. I didn't have for decades in my career, I didn't have what you would call a mentor or a sponsor. And so I had to look much further out. So I went to look at people who were financially where I wanted to be, owned businesses like I wanted to run. And I started modeling what they were doing. I would read their books, I'd read their blogs. And I realized there's huge power in that your mentor doesn't have to necessarily be someone you talk to every day. Although I've now, I've connected with this person so often, I've contributed to their content, I've done all these cool things with them that they have now invited me into their inner circle, and I do get to talk to them, and I have one-on-ones with them, but it didn't start that way. And this person is a billionaire, like a female billionaire who has a family, who cares about all the things that I care about. But it started with me just aligning, like, my dream of who I wanted to be was somebody who was way far out there and just modeling their success. I always say success leaves clues. So find those clues. And so I actually ended up creating a community. It's called iHeart AI. And I was just because I always have like an iHeart AI everywhere, whether it's a t-shirt or a pin. And I love AI and I want other people to find joy in it as well. And I want to scale my ability to help people. And so I created a community where we go on live Q&A calls and we talk to each other. And more importantly, it's not just one to one. Like I have one mentor who can give me support. I have a tribe of people who can give me support. And I think that's really important too. That's why I love Wednesdays with Women. Like it's a tribe of women who have gone on this path. And a lot of us are at different levels. So no matter where you are, you can find someone who's just one chapter ahead of you, who's willing to look back and not just be like, hey, catch up, but actually reach back and grab your hand and pull you, help pull you along. And it's so inspiring. So yeah, finding community has become almost more important than identifying a single one person who can change my life with their mentorship. Find a community of women. and make sure that you are a giver as well as a taker. And I think those things will help in that way.
I think that's such great advice. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's so motivating and relatable and encouraging. We all need to be not only listening to our gut when we get advice and deciding if we want to take it, but also looking for those opportunities to say yes when the red carpet is rolled out for us. So, thank you for sharing that and encouraging us all to do it just like you.
Yeah, I'm so grateful. Thank you. And I look forward to getting to know all of the Wednesday women.
Absolutely. We're so glad to have you as part of our community.
Thank you.
Before we end the episode, we want to take just a moment to reflect with you, our entrepreneurial listeners, about what Noelle's story means to you. How do you know that advice is worth listening to? And what do you owe yourself? If today's show inspired you, tell us. Send an email or voice memo to hello@wednesdaywomen.org. Or keep the ripple going by giving us a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your ratings help us grow and inspire even more people. This podcast is brought to you by Wednesday Women, an organization dedicated to increasing the visibility of women executive leaders. Learn more at wednesdaywomen.org. Thank you to our executive producers, Melissa Moody and Leslie Greenwood. Again, I'm your host, Ashley Lobbs, hoping you'll keep the ripple going. Until next time.